Hey guys,
All right.
welcome to the WCG Investments webinar. And yeah, today we are going to talk about a conference that Matthias and Tim attended this past week. Tim, what was the conference and what was it about?
It was the MHI, the Manufactured Housing Institute conference in Orlando, Florida. And it was all about, manufactured homes. So the actual homes, as well as, a lot of people who are involved in buying and servicing mobile home parks in lots of different ways. So lenders, tree cutters, people who put roads in, all sorts of things, man. Lots of really great connections.
That's pretty cool. Did you get somebody for Sherwood to cut trees?
Yes, we do actually. There's one company. They have some really interesting software. They're using kind of like a GIS map, and then kind of like I think they use some AI features and identify which trees are too close to homes, basically, as like an initial assessment, and then they can go out then and they're nationwide, right? And they go out and actually assess individually the trees and say which ones are fine, which ones are not fine, are really too close. And you can use that during due diligence. You can use that, after the fact when you're operating. I think NPS is the company, and I see really legit, really cool stuff. You definitely want to use that going forward. And Sherwood might be a good example because you can walk through the park and you're kind of like, yeah, that tree for sure needs to be cut down. And there might be some other ones where you're like, I don't know if we really have to. And then if somebody comes in as an expert in this field and they can actually make a professional assessment, I think that would be super helpful.
Yeah, that's really good. That's awesome. I wasn't aware of that kind of software. I think it sounds really useful for what we do. So Tim, what made this year's conference stand out compared to others?
Well, for me personally, so like I've been to a few of these, and I always like meeting people, and it's interesting to see where we are today versus, or not versus, but it's where we are and where everyone else is. And it's like, it's a cool thing where like we're all kind of growing together. Like I really love mobile home park owner operators. We're all like willing to share insights, willing to help each other in any way we can. And my favorite part was having dinner with some of our friends at Vanderbilt Mortgage Finance. We've done a few loans with them, and I love working with them. And it was a really great time where we could just, have that connection. Jen had like one drink, so she was making sure everyone at the table was laughing. That's what she does after. Well, I mean, that's what she does anyway, but even more so. So yeah, we're discussing business, but also like growing the relationships, and that's what's so important. It's a relationship business.
Absolutely. That's awesome. So Matthias, I know you like numbers and that kind of thing. Did you identify any trends or data points that really caught your attention?
Yeah, the cost of mobile homes or manufactured homes are definitely increasing. I mean, even if like the model homes, if you look at them, maybe they start like a $70,000-$80,000 range. Some of them, of course, they're not entry-level homes, obviously, but the price of those actually going up more and more going forward. So we talked to some really heavyweight operators as well, and they have various licenses, dealer licenses, that is, in various states. And it was interesting, like everybody had like a little bit of a different price for the same model, so to speak. So I think everybody has some weight they can throw around to get really good deals and stuff. So I think we have some really good contacts made during that conference where we can get some really good deals done and getting some new mobile homes in for a much cheaper price than we bought them recently. And even those numbers are working. So I think we can just improve on that going forward. Especially next week, Tim and I are going to go to the Georgia portfolio that we have in Mark Pacan. And I think there's the biggest value adds infill, right? There's dozens of homes or spots that need to be infilled, and having those good connections that somebody can really bring homes in for really cheap and not have to pay retail. I think that's going to be a major advantage.
What was cool, like on that same note, I just sent an email to Seth earlier so he could get us contact info for Jimmy and other people who have, they do a program where it's like for their repo homes, where they are able to basically put the home in your park, and you give them a deal on lot rent or free lot rent or whatever. I don't know the specifics just yet, but it's kind of like, they've got these homes they need to sell, and an easier way to sell them instead of bringing them to a dealership is sometimes putting them in a park. And so, I sent him an email to hook us up with that so I can get more information on that. And it would be a big value add, because, we have to infill 20, 25, 30 homes in Georgia. So it would just make things a lot more win-win for everyone, and make it a lot easier for us, to really infill like all those pads, increase the value. So here's like I refied those parks last year. And when I did that, we got an appraisal, and the appraisal was, it was like, I want to say 2.3, 2.4 million, something like that. And it said, when the park is filled, then the value is going to be like 3.2 million. So if we could, come in and bring those homes in relatively easy, because nothing's easy, but like if there's a path forward like that, I totally want to take advantage of it. And again, I love working with Vanderbilt, so I think it's something that it's gonna, I mean, they're doing everything they can to just be the powerhouse lender in the space. So I'm excited.
That's really cool. So Tim, you mentioned that at the conference you meet other operators, some beginner operators and some really experienced operators, which is really cool. How are the best operators maximizing returns while still improving communities?
So we did talk to a few people who they have like for infill, right? Back to infill, because when you have a vacant lot, it's versus an occupied lot, like that's probably your major heavy value add in a mobile home park. So some of the operators we were talking to had that like arm where of the company where it's completely dedicated to infill and setup and getting those homes occupied. So there's people who are taking ownership, like this is what this does. It's a separate business, and that's all they do. Other than that, I mean, just really talking to friends and seeing what's working for them, because that's the cool thing, right? Again, growing with people and building relationships. And yeah, just met a few people who I hadn't met in real life before. Talked to Derek Vickers a little bit, and different things that he's doing to kind of maximize stuff. I mean, he's really great in that he knows Florida like no one. He's such a rock star when it comes to that, and he can look at a deal and say, okay, this is probably what it's going to be worth. And so for him, he's maximizing by like super targeting the areas that he really, really knows. And I mean, that's part of why we stay in the Southeast. It's a little bit more broad than Florida, but some people are like, oh, where else are you going? Where else are you going? And I was like, man, we're doing great in the Southeast. We don't have any lack of deals in the Southeast, and we know it. We like it. We want to, I want to own all the parks in the Southeast. I'm not going to pretend that I don't. So yeah, just kind of following other people's leads. Same with my friend, Ryan Naris, our friend. He was like him and Michael Panzolini, who they run a really good group mentorship program. Matthias and I had joined that, and they're like, why are you guys trying to buy everywhere in the country? And I was like, I want everything. And they're like, stop. And, from there, we really niched down into just really the Southeast. And yeah, it's it was scary because I was like, oh, well, if we're not looking at all deals, then we're going to get no deals sort of thing. But it was totally a head game. You know, it was totally in my own head that I thought that we're going to be lacking. And actually, when we are focusing just on the Southeast, like we're having so much success. It's stupid.
Yeah, you're right. And as you grow, right, you learn. And I think Matthias and I, we talked about it before, where we just wanted to get more and more and more. But as you learn, you become more picky because you know what works and you know how to mitigate risk and that kind of thing, right? So along that same line of experienced operator and risk, what risks are other operators worried about right now, and how are we positioned to mitigate those kind of risks?
Matthias, what did you see? You talk while I think about that, because that's a good question.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think rising costs, back to what I said earlier, I think rising costs of those homes, it's the biggest value add you can do on the mobile home park is to infill it and fill those empty spots, because they're not going to pay you until they infilled, right? And fill with a paying spot or a paying home. But the rising costs behind that, labor costs, material costs, etc. I know we have some, political turbulences with tariffs and stuff like that, and everything. Mobile homes are built in the US, great, but there's a lot of materials coming from overseas, and I think that drives costs up as well. So that's a concern for a lot of people. So I think with that being said, I think the big operators, what I've seen, what they're doing well, which is, kind of expanding on the point what Tim mentioned earlier, is they have a lot of focus, like laser focus. If you talk to Derek Vickers, like he does Florida, he doesn't touch New Jersey, he doesn't touch Colorado. Florida is a thing, Ryan Neris, he does a lot of Florida, he does a lot of Carolinas, that's what he's good at. He's very clustered and very focused. He doesn't really do much infill because it's not the heart he is choosing. He's doing other things, how he increases the value. Some people are heavily focusing on infill, so to speak. So I think on that focus part, I think is what the big operators are doing really well. They know exactly what they can do well, and they just expand on it. And there's no lack of opportunities, especially if you focus and go an inch wide and a mile deep. I think that's what they're doing really well.
Have you guys read the book Strength Finder?
Strength Finder? No, I didn't. Nope.
It's a really good book, and they want you to focus on capitalizing on your strengths, right? We all have weaknesses, and we're trained to work on our weaknesses, right? But this particular book, it's cool because it wants you to capitalize on your strengths. And that goes along the lines of what you're talking about, right? Our bread and butter is the Southeast, right? Why go out of that if that's working well? And there's a lot of opportunity in the Southeast, right? Why expand?
It's a growing market in the Southeast, obviously, especially in the Carolinas. Like all the markets that we are involved in, they're heavily growing. And if you already have established, properties there, you have a network there already. You have contractors, the dealers in the area for getting the homes purchased and stuff like that. And you have contacts there, your property managers, etc., or community managers already. If you just expand on that, it's so much easier to onboard a new park instead of venturing into a new area and you have to start from scratch again, making those relationships. You don't have anybody you can trust when you go in a new market yet. But we know who we can trust in Spartanburg, and we can trust in Sumter, where we have deals already. Same with Sherwood, Forest MHP that we have. We know who we can trust, and we can easily expand from there. We feel comfortable doing that. I think that gives us a lot of push and a lot of momentum of being successful in the next deal, and the next deal, and the next deal, because we have that infrastructure in place. It's so easy to expand on that.
Yeah, when you go into a new market, even though the numbers may look good, you start from scratch, right? Building relationships with property managers, vendors, right? We're finding a lot of issues with vendors, even in a small market. It can work, right? But you have to start from scratch, right? And if you have everything already established in a certain market, if something works, right, then why break it?
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's what Ryan Harris's mentorship program really taught us, because he said, well, the numbers work on the Ohio deal that we had under contract last year, but it would take a lot of grind and sweat equity to get that deal to work, and it will distract us from growing on other areas because we only have 24 hours a day and 7 days a week, as capacity. I'm sure this team could have gotten that deal done, but it would have been a bear to manage for sure. And I think it shows maturity of us at WCG. We just say, "No, you know what? No, that was the wrong move to try to get that thing. Let's not pursue it and get out, before DD is over, and focus on the markets you're really strong in." And I think that's how you fail forward. And we failed early enough that we didn't get burnt. There's other people like try to get the deal done and then get burned like 2 years down the road and then losing investors' money. We didn't even go there. Obviously, that's not what we want. So I think that shows maturity. And again, that's why we join those mentorship programs, right? Because if you want to know the road ahead, you ask the people coming back.
Yep.
Ryan Harris has 4,500 lots. Why wouldn't we listen to him, what he has to say, what we should do? You know, it doesn't mean what he says is like, the Bible, we have to go exactly that route. But I'm definitely listening very openly about what he has to say. And the same with Tim, because, he has a ton of experience. I'm sure he got punched in the teeth a couple times and might as well learn from it.
Has he? I don't know about that. He wears a mouthpiece.
Okay, look, in Action Academy now, they have fail forward Fridays. It's like, like they have Wednesday wins and so like I just posted a fail forward Friday thing. And I've got lots of stories. I've got lots of failures that I've learned from, and like, oh, okay, well, I've lost my money. I haven't lost anyone else's money. But like, that's how I've learned. And like, I do my best to pay attention to friends and people who have been there and people coming back. But sometimes the best teacher for me is learning through, those personal failures. And I've learned a decent amount of things that I can really utilize, like all that stuff, like in meetings, we're doing an asset management call or, on whatever. And it's like, okay, like I know this because I remember what happened. And it's like, not necessarily like a failure or like anything that has blown up, but it's like, oh yeah, that thing went sideways a little bit. And here's how we can prevent that going forward.
Yeah. War stories build character for sure.
Yeah.
Totally.
Going back to the conference, how does our approach to operations, acquisitions, investor communications compare to others at the conference?
We know, like in terms of acquisitions, at least I can speak to. So another night we're having dinner with Marcus and Millichap and hanging out with Glenn Esterson and Dylan Hellberg. Glenn Esterson is by far like the OG, and it was great, just to sit down and talk with him and again build that rapport. So Dylan, who lives in Charleston, and we've done a few deals together. I love working with him. Like he was saying that and compared to other people, like we give an LOI, even if we're not even close. We give a reason, we provide some feedback. And he was joking. He's like, yeah, sometimes, I use Tim's LOI to low anchor a seller to be like, look, these are the other offers coming in. So take this other person's because it's not as bad as you think. And it's just funny, but it's true. It's true. Like we have the relationships in the Southeast, and we always say like, okay, like we don't take the relationship with a broker for granted. We take it very seriously. I mean, you could ask, Taylor Kirk, the same thing. It's like, he'll send a lot of deals and we'll talk about them. And most of them are no, and that's okay. But like, here's the reasoning. Here's like, we're looking for a minimum 2x equity multiple for investor returns. And to be honest, we're probably going to be shifting it a little bit to make sure that we're able to not have accrued pref, or have almost like have a lot less accrued pref, because we've heard what investors are saying. Investors have been burned by multifamily deals where there is an accrued pref and then the accrual went away, or like whatever, like it didn't work out. And no fault really of anyone. It happened. but we're very cognizant of like, okay, how can we cash flow sooner? How can we get people's money back sooner? How can we serve the investors? We're listening to their issues, and we are, or their, what's stressing them out, and we're like, okay, we can take that problem and solve for it. So, yeah, that's always being open and honest about where we are and having a reason, and not just like, I want a deal, which it's like, what does that mean? Like, here's why I want this deal, because this works for this. It goes a long way.
Yeah, something I like about how we do business is transparency across the board, right? I think that's something that we find super valuable. Is there anything that you learn at the conference that you think an investor should hear, especially a new investor, that can maybe help them choose who to invest with?
Yeah. So as a new investor, if you're looking at different operators, just hit us up. We made a guide of things you should be looking at, but really, and I'm sure we can drop that link down in the notes or whatever. But yeah, make sure you see someone's past deals, you see their history, you see their communication style. Ask for maybe an investor report. Ask for how they're running their numbers. Ask for their underwriting. If you are if that's your thing. It's not everyone's, but make sure that people are willing to show you under the hood. Like, hey, this is how we do things. It's like there's nothing hidden. That's you don't want to put your money in with someone and then hear like your monthly or quarterly communication is, this asset is doing great, trust us. It's like, bro, come on now, show me, don't tell me.
It goes back to that transparency, right? Whoever you decide to invest with, make sure that they're open and transparent. If they're trying to hold back on something, hey, that's a big red flag.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, it's here. The QR code. Look, y'all could get that. That's how you get that investor guide. Make your life even easier. Oh goodness.
Hey, Matthias, based on what you learned at the conference, what excites you more about our upcoming deals?
I think we're gonna capitalize on the infill strategies a lot more. Somebody said it, and it's so obvious that I almost felt dumb not to think about this, honestly, because if you look at the entire portfolio and then talk about how many empty lots you have, and a few parks have a few empty lots here, and if you have a few here, and you put them all together, it's like buying another park or two, without buying another park, without paying $15,000 for an SEC attorney and other closing costs and stuff like that. You already have it. You just have to capitalize on it. So maximizing what we already have, that excites me, because we were focusing heavily on like turning like existing homes over that were empty based on the deals that we bought in the last year and a half. But filling those empty lots up excites me. That arm wasn't existing, and we're building it out right now. And we already tested that in Spartanburg successfully, because we had 3 empty lots there. We got 2 homes, brand new build from Clayton, set in our park. And actually, just yesterday, I took ownership or possession of the second one yesterday, and it's been a pleasure to deal with these guys, and how the whole process works. And Vanderbilt, again, they've been fantastic to getting all that done for us. And as we had that dinner, we knew before walking in it's going to be very valuable, but like walking out has been more valuable than we could have ever imagined, because they have so many arms at Vanderbilt to help operators like us to be successful, with like the repo department, how they're repossessing homes and selling that to operators like us. And also have like the even used home financing. If you have a used home, you can send it to a lady at Vanderbilt. She runs the department. She was at dinner, and they can finance anything down to like 1975 mobile homes, finance it to the end consumer. So that's stuff I didn't know existed before. That excites me. They have more options now. And as you guys know, I'm doing the underwriting for WCG. So now I have like another, tool set I can deal with, when I see a deal and see opportunities, how we can get that done, because not every deal is the same. It's always like an empty canvas, and it's kind of like a black art, so to speak. So I think that makes us even more successful in the future and more powerful in our acquisitions, because we know what we can go after as we're building out those arms. And just what we learned in like 3 days is just, it's priceless. I absolutely love it. And that's why I love to go to those conferences.
Yeah.
All the connections you make in there, and you have people from getting started, and then other, bigger powerhouse top 10 operators that have 26,000 lots, they're all there, and you can talk to these guys, and they're all human, they're all made it there, by just being consistent and committed, and just, have the driving force behind them and the passion, and I think that's certainly what we have within WCG. We're ultimately all super driven, super committed. I think that's my biggest excitement. I'm just like, buzzing still from this conference, to be honest.
That is awesome. That's outstanding. Tim, if an investor has $100,000, right, and they want to invest, why should they invest in mobile home parks? But better yet, why WCG Investments?
Oh, I like that. It's a hardball question, right? So first of all, let's talk about mobile home parks and why. So you get we double money in 5 years, and that's, there's nothing crazy about that. There's nothing different or off the beaten path about that. A lot of people will project that 2x equity multiple. Why mobile home parks is because, first of all, you get a ton of depreciation. Maybe you can take all that. Maybe you can't. It depends if you're a real estate professional or not. But either way, you're going to have a ton of paper losses that you can use to offset your tax burden. Other than that, I mean, it is the safest asset, multifamily asset, real estate asset. You've got people who stay there for years and years and years. Not a lot of turnover. Your operating expenses are, lower expense ratio than other things. There's a ever increasing demand for affordable housing or attainable housing or whatever we call it nowadays. And there's a constant / dwindling supply of them, because people are, they're not building more, and they are, every so often they're getting rid of them. They're being redeveloped to apartments because that's the highest and best use a lot of times. So yeah, I mean, it's a super safe asset with all these things that kind of add up to make it. I mean, I love it. I have an apartment. I have an RV park. I don't like them as much. It doesn't make as much sense. Plus, with mobile home parks, you got the chance to take something and make it better, and give people who need more affordability in their housing, make it a nicer place to live. So, I'm a big proponent of, I guess, planting seeds in terms of just making things a little bit better. And then the collective gets better as a whole, right? The world, I think, gets better as a whole. If I can make this park a little bit nicer, that to me compounds and maybe makes the people living there a little bit happier, and they're a little bit happier makes it transfers to them in the real world, and then that it's infectious. It's crazy, but it's really wonderful to see. And then why us? Like we were saying, we're very transparent and open. We'll show you under the hood. Our priority is our investors. So yes, we are making sure that all of our tenants are taken care of, but at the same time, our priority is our investors. So we don't focus on ourselves. We know that we'll be okay. We're going to be making money. We're going to be doing well. But the focus is really on other people, the investors, the tenants, everything like that. We know if we take care of everyone else, that we will get everything that we want. And then again, it goes back to, making the world better. I want what I want is to serve investors so well that they keep coming back and back and back. And we're making them a ton of money and saving them a ton on taxes. We are making us a lot of money, saving a ton on taxes. We're making communities better. We're able to put a ton of money into the communities. And it's just like everyone can win together. There doesn't have to be any kind of zero-sum game. I'm like very, very focused on serving others, and it has done me well since I've really gotten into that mindset.
I love that. Like I always say, it's all about adding value and focusing on people. I love that. Hey guys, I got to tell you, this session was really, really, really good. I really enjoy this. I can't wait for the next one. Any last minute thoughts about the conference that you want our listeners to hear from you guys?
I think it would be helpful for investors also to go to those conferences if they're really interested in those asset classes. I don't think you have to be operator or somebody that owns a lot of mobile home parks or operates them or work for a manufacturer of a mobile home. I think you just go there and just also vet out the operators, that they're all in the same room. Go out there and talk to the people. I mean, oftentimes it's about what company you invest in, but also who runs the company and meet the people behind it, And to Tim's point, like our transparency, I think is unmatched. I mean, we have calls with investors while we're operating a deal, and we show them where we are compared to the underwriting, show them the pro forma versus actuals, etc. I think that's very important. I think those conferences is where you can meet a lot of operators. That's will be a little tip. Because I haven't seen any investors there really, other than maybe some family offices, but individual investors, they want to place their hard-earned money, $50,000, $100,000 into a deal. Go to those conferences. They might cost $700-800 to get in there, but it's a good insurance policy, to vet out those operators and meet the people. So a little tip from my end.
I like that. Tim?
Yeah, I'll second that. I mean, there's nothing like talking to someone in person. It's easy to say whatever through social media or emails or whatever. It's a different thing to look at someone in the eyes and talk to them about different things. And like another thing I would recommend to investors is like ask about people, like ask about the deals that went sideways, ask about the deals that didn't go as planned, because we all have them. I have them. Nothing happens 100% the way you imagine it to be. And, sometimes things go a little sideways. Sometimes they go a lot sideways. But anyone who's been in the game for a little bit, who's been doing this, who has experience should be able to tell you, hey, I thought this was going to happen. This didn't happen. My favorite is my second park. We were all in for like $250,000, me and, the JV partners. And we thought we were going to be able to turn it into like $1 million park. And just roadblock after roadblock after roadblock happened. We ended up selling for 250. No broker or anything. So we ended up like no one lost any money. And actually, my partner Ryan and I, technically we could have made some money, but then our partner would have lost some money. So we just said, oh, how about like we don't make money, we just make it so everyone kind of walks away unscathed, and then can move ahead and that feels right to me, to make it so like I don't need to win if someone else is losing. How about we all just walk away? We didn't make money. We learned some lessons. So yeah, I mean, it was painful in figuring out like, hey man, and again, it was my second park. So my first park was such a hit that I thought I was like walking on water, to be a little silly, but I thought like, oh, I could do no wrong. And then I went into this park and it was vastly different and vastly more difficult. And so, yeah, definitely learned a lot there, but yeah, it happens, make sure you're vetting, you're asking people, they're not like Facebook Reel, Instagram Reel stories, right? Ask them for the reality, because it happens, and you know, everyone should be making decisions with their money with like all the information that's pertinent. You know, if it say, okay, this one guy doubled everyone's money in 2 years and the IRRs through the roof, but like 5 of his other deals are like you know, doing very, very poorly. Like, that's something you should be aware of.
Yeah, really good nuggets there for a new investor. Thank you, guys. All right, so with that, we conclude this webinar of WCG Investments, and thank you for listening. And as always, you got questions, reach out. We're here to answer. I don't have a QR code yet, but
Yet.
but tap into the QR code and get some goodies from the team. And we're here to answer any questions you may have. It could be a little challenging, a little scary, but you have to take that first step. We all did, and I got to tell you, it's been a good step so far. So take that step, and yeah, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Have a good one. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.